Hi, I'm Jennifer Schetz, and I'm the lead medic.
Hi, I'm James Schutz, and well, I'm the lead medic. And together, we're the Whiny Medics. So ultimately, ladies first, of course. We're going to let you go ahead and tell your story to start out with how you got into EMS, how we got to this point too, and then I'll interject when I need be.
Sure. Well, I worked at a hospital before I ever even thought of getting into EMS. I worked in admissions. At the evening times is where I started out at. And really enjoyed working in the back with the ER staff at night. Eventually went to day shift, and I had a son who had multiple problems with his heart and had to have surgery. So that kind of led me into eventually wanting to give back. We almost lost him multiple times. Lots of scary moments in an ambulance ride and surgeries and all kinds of stuff. So anyway, when he was a little older and we were kind of out in the clear, I'd actually already gone through a divorce and decided to put myself through EMT school after volunteering with the local EMS service as a driver, just to see if I could handle the blood and scary moments and whatnot. I didn't want to put myself through school if I wasn't going to be able to hack it. But I was. So I volunteered for a good year. Then they offered me a EMT class for free as long as I volunteered for a year after that. And I did that, moved on, got my intermediate, and that's when I kind of met you when we worked at the same service. I was an intermediate. My goal was paramedic, of course. That's kind of where.
Well, and my story is a little different. I didn't have the drive because of having a child that was injured or anything like that. My drive basically came from the idea of I started out as a volunteer firefighter. I really had no interest in EMS initially, was going to be a cop. I joined the service, got pregnant at a young age, and had kids. And
wow, you got pregnant?
Well, we had kids on the way, and kind of changed up the dynamic of what my world was going to be about, and realized that the military wasn't going to work. So made a bunch of mistakes in between there and there, and eventually found my way into the volunteer fire department there in Gerald, Texas, where I grew up. That taught me and brought me to a love for EMS, a love for helping people. And really, I am one of the guys who started out as a volunteer, and it led to a very, very much of a very plentiful career. But what really got me as well into the EMS world was there was a guy once. I was working for the time at the Williams County Road and Bridge Department. I would kind of spark my interest was we pull up on an accident scene, and there's a guy who was part of our crew who hops out off of his tractor, and he starts helping out the EMTs, the paramedics and stuff, and he's throwing things, he's doing this and doing that and helping out like he was part of the crew. And I was like, hey man, how did you learn all that? And he told me, EMT school, man. He said, I've been an EMT for years. And with that, he really truly sparked my interest. I asked lots and lots of questions of him, and he was like, man, it's just something we did, it's something I've done. It was fun. And, he was an EMT at a racetrack, for a time, and he did this and that, worked as a volunteer. And it sparked my interest enough to where I went to EMT school.
Yeah.
I eventually left almost a $12.50, $13 an hour job, to make $7.50 an hour, which changed the world for me. And kind of getting the idea of how things work. I really, truly enjoyed what I did. Once I got into it, things were good. I think I went to work initially for a private ambulance service. That's where we met. And then we decided paramedic school for us, It was a great idea. It led to many good things. I think ultimately it led to us getting to this point somehow.
Yeah, we kind of have a strange dynamic.
Very much so.
Mhm.
And I think once in the paramedic school, I went to work for the city of Burnett, where once we were done with paramedic school, they hired me on part time. Then went full time there very quickly afterwards, and they sent me to Fire Academy, where I worked for the last 12 years. It was amazing there. I've worked with some really good guys throughout the time, and then I got an opportunity to teach, which was something I always kind of knew that I wanted to do. It was an idea of when I got ready to retire that, teaching was something that would be fun for me to do. And ultimately, I have got the opportunity to teach for a very reputable um, company that does continuing education. I have helped build the program for the VILT program, or the National Registry Research Program for CE Solutions, and it's been super awesome for me.
Mhm.
You, on the other hand, are continuing to work in the field, continuing to work on the ambulance.
I do. Yep. I work for a private service in a very, very rural area. So my transport times are anywhere from an hour and a half to 2, 3 hours for a 911. So it's different from where we were, and I enjoy doing it. I'm a supervisor now, so I actually run the crew.
That's
That's
awesome.
scary.
Yeah.
But I enjoy doing it, and I still love working on the ambulance, and giving back to my community.
You were giving back to your community, where I was, looking for something that was more of a enjoyable time, something that seemed fun to do. I really enjoyed the fact of helping people, things like that. So it kind of got us in two different ways, but at the same time, brought us something we enjoyed doing.
Yeah.
And then it comes the married life and the and the life that we currently live. I think it's interesting to know that we carry what I carried three to the relationship, three children. You carried one.
Yep.
We brought those children up to be. They understood the EMS world. They understood that our holidays revolved, our times changed, and that things, our shift work was part of our lives.
Very much so.
For us, it was a huge difference because of the fact that, a lot of times during the early times when the kids were young, you would go on shift and then I would go on shift, and then we'd finally have one shift, one day off together. And we did that for years.
Called that the marriage saver.
Yeah, that was the marriage saver for a long period of time because of the fact that we decreased how much time we were really together. But at the same point in time, then it changed where we ended up on the same shift later on as the kids got older. We're able to manage things around the house without us here.
That was a big difference.
And it did make a difference. Big change around the house, big change amongst the kids.
Big change in my your private time. Like you always knew you had that one night to kind of just decompress and do what you needed to do and not worry about a whole lot. Because our kids were pretty self-sufficient at that point in time. And then, then we were both home and it was different.
Yeah, for sure.
Not bad, just different.
Yeah, and that's part of what it is. It's kind of understanding how the difference of the dynamic is there. I think one of the interesting things is we decided through my interest or your interest of podcasts and listening to podcasts, you kind of got me riled up about it, where I have been working on some projects with some podcasts. I had a really good friend of mine who brought up the idea of doing podcasts, and we really discussed it and said, hey, we can really do this. And then we, that kind of took the steps. We decided on our own to come up with this idea.
Well, yeah, y'all kind of played around with it, and I found it very interesting, and I started listening to podcasts, and then when y'all kind of didn't do anything, I was like, hey, why don't we do one? And due to the fact that I listened to podcasts, there was one in particular where they opened up a bottle of beer at the beginning, and then they would taste test it and talk about it, and then they'd go into what their podcast was really about, which was crime. And I thought that was a cool idea. And so I brought it to you and we kind of put it together.
Yeah, and then we've kind of decided that the Whiny Medics was almost a pun to a degree because of the fact of yes, there are topics we will discuss that are going to seem like they're complaints that we have in EMS world, but we all know in EMS world that there's a lot of us who make those decisions and make complaints about what's going on, but at the same point in time, we also know how to make the changes to be acceptable and to get past those.
Not only that, EMS, if you're not in EMS, you don't understand that it's not a black and white world. It's a beautiful color of gray.
100% gray, and gray of all shades at that, and ultimately it's like 50 Shades of Gray. Oh, wait a minute, no, almost. No. But anyway, it's crazy because of the fact that we realized that through EMS, and we know that was our topic. That was our main goal. Was it's a topic we both love. We both come to love. The changes that we've seen collectively, we've got 37 years sitting here at the table just of EMS experience alone from both sides, admin side, field side, EMT, intermediate, things like that. Lots of experience that we've seen. Rural medicine. Now, I'll come straight out and say we don't know a lot about inner city by way of big city. Those guys, the inner city medics, are a totally different type of medic. We deal with stuff that's out in a rural area. We're from the hill country out here in Texas, and we just, that understanding of it's going to take 20 to 30 minutes, and your average call time is anywhere from an hour to an hour and a half, makes a difference on how we perform in the back of the truck. And I really think that idea makes a difference on how we manage things. Compared to those that are in the back of the truck for the 4 or 5 minutes. I think so that's part of the dynamic that we bring to it is that rural medicine.
We also have very different views.
Very different views as different types of medics. I am more of, I like to know the reasons why we're doing things and all the way down to the cellular form and why the thought process behind it is. It was what's the purpose? Why do we change protocols? Why are we looking at different things? I think it makes a difference on why we're doing stuff.
A lot of studies. You look at a lot of studies.
Researching. I do like to look and see what's the latest trends and why we're making these differences with the trends.
Yeah, I just like to treat the patient.
What do you mean by treat the patient?
Yes. There is a point that you have to know what your drug or what your treatment is doing, and I'm good at that. But to go deep down into that cellular level and know exactly why that drug and what that drug does, and what I just it makes my head spin sometimes. Doesn't make me less of a medic. I treat my patients and and do what I need to do, but retaining that. Big brain information I'm not always great at.
I think
I like to put the thingy there and give them that whatchamacallit sometimes.
Well, yeah, and I'm sure your partners just
they understand. They know exactly what I'm saying.
Yeah, I hope they do because they will at some point in time be guests on our show. So it's going to be interesting to hear that dynamic. But, ultimately, and I think that's where we have difference of opinions on different ways things are done. And then sometimes we do agree on things and how they should be done and what they should be looked at that way and what's the purpose behind it. With different medical directors and different ways at looking things, I really see we bring a lot to the table. I've listened to multiple podcasts that were EMS related. And I see a dynamic that it was basically read a call, go the way we would do it, and this and that, and it was real bland.
Yeah, and some of them are just kind of like a thrill seeker type podcast.
Yeah,
I kind of would like to see us go in a direction of discussing different views on topics. Mm-hmm. True, real, down the earth topics. That go on and have some fun with it and but learn something from it.
Oh, I agree, and I think ultimately, no matter what we do, as long as we're in EMS, we should be learning from everybody. I don't think that idea of I'm not going to do this because of the fact that I know too much or I know more than you doesn't mean I can't learn something from you. I've learned that through teaching my classes on a regular basis. But I think the interesting thing is as well is that whiny part. As the beginning of our podcast, we're going to open up a nice bottle of wine or a bottle of whiskey or a nice couple cold beers and kind of give you our unprofessional critique of them. Whether it's something we would sit back out on the patio on a Friday or Saturday or coming off shift and open up and enjoy as adults discussing that. And really, truly, I think that's going to be that's a short section of it, but it's something in EMS that we do. We enjoy the wind down time.
And don't expect me to swarm a glass and sniff it and, tell you the bouquet of it. I'm a, hey, this is this wine and this is what it tastes like and holy shit, don't buy that no more.
By all means, we are not professional wine drinkers or beer drinkers or whiskey drinkers, although I like to say I'm a connoisseur of the nice whiskey. I have my favorites. But ultimately, I think the idea of how we manage that is going to be short and to the point.
Just kind of a fun add-on.
Mm-hmm. And then we discuss the EMS topics. I think there are so many hot new topics in EMS.
Especially right now.
Yeah, and that I think that we really got to look at. I think there's changes throughout the EMS world that we're seeing and how the changes with COVID, the changes with the just society as it is and how we manage dealing with mass casualty incidents
or scenes.
It's crazy to see how we went from being somebody who would show up to the house, fight another ambulance company for the call, expect you to pay cash, and then we'll transport you to the hospital. Or
very much so pre our
way pre our profession. But the ideas of seeing how the changes in EMS worked for them. I think that makes a huge difference on how we see EMS now and how it's going to progress in the future. I think with the changes in education, I see with changes in systems, the system status management, changes on how our scenes are looked at. I think these are all big changes in EMS, and I think they deserve they deserve to be looked at individually, and I think that's a good idea for us.
Wholeheartedly, and when I mentioned the podcast earlier, I've enjoyed every one I've listened to. I just want to bring a different dynamic to it, as far as where we stand on it.
Oh, yeah, by all means. We, not only that, but just the idea and way of how it's presented. For one, the idea of we're husband and wife, and we will have our spats right here on the in the old podcast.
Yeah, I do believe I nailed you in the head with a water bottle once over our jobs.
That did happen once, and there was a time you ran me over in the expedition.
Oh, you're so melodramatic about that. I really didn't run you over.
That was a pretty close call, if you ask me. But I'm just saying. But just the ideas that, husband and wife look at it, our difference of opinions on calls and how things should be ran.
And we have literally gotten into arguments over,
yes.
2 days later, I'm telling him about my day, and he's like, what'd you do that for?
For sure. I mean, calls that we've made calls and decisions on and how they've changed other people makes a difference.
But I will tell you, he is also one of my dial-medics. And if you're in EMS, you all know what I'm talking about. We all have that dial-medic in our phone.
Oh, 100%. The person we
go
to.
You know who they are.
The go-to people. And you got to have the go-tos. Makes a huge difference for us whenever we look at that. But, so hopefully you'll enjoy these podcasts.
I think so.
This is, like I said, this is our first one. This is our one that gives you who we are. We promise not to bore you with every single one. We promise to basically lay it out there for you. And we're going to lay it out on the line, and we're going to tell you what we think. And we hope that you enjoy. We hope that you subscribe and listen to them as they progress through.
It was our first time ever. Well, for me, you do stuff at Z Solutions, but I don't. This is my first one to do like this, so well, forgive me for any oopses. But
I know a really good editor.
You
guy.
do?
Yeah.
I'm so glad. I know a guy who does production.
Yeah, he's pretty good at it.
We I put it in the freezer. Mm-hmm. So if you're on our Facebook page, which if you're not, we'll give that information to you in just a moment. But I put out there, we had 3 different wines that we had brought. And they're all local wineries. So the ones I picked up were from Fredericksburg. Mm-hmm. And the one we actually put out there that you guys voted on was a Fiesta wine. So they're actually out at the Bend, but they have some tasting rooms in San Antonio, Fredericksburg. So the winner of that, if you voted, was the Fiesta wine Sandia. So our next podcast, which is our official first podcast, will be featuring that wine. Yep. And if you have any suggestions, of wineries, we obviously don't know where they all are. I was told of one the other day in Liberty Hill. I go through there every day almost and didn't know it was there. So you can send us that or send us information on a topic that you want us to talk about. So with that being said, our Facebook page is
Whiny Medics.
And how is that spelled?
WHINYMEDICS.
I'm so proud of you.
I know.
And our email
is whinymedics@gmail.com.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And we have a YouTube page.
Yes, it's at Whiny Medics.
And we're working on the Insta.
The Insta. Isn't that crazy? We changed the name from Instagram. Everybody just says, nah, it's the Insta. Who'd have come up with this idea? I'm just saying.
I don't know. And we'll put that all in our information for you if you didn't jot that down or remember it.
Make sure you're getting this information. Make sure you're coming back. And it looks like we're going to drop these on Wednesdays. On Wednesdays, we'll have the Wine Down Wednesdays or the Whiskey Wednesday or the, whatever the beer on Wednesday. That's just Thirsty Wednesday, whatever we call it that day. But, ultimately we've got good plans.
Winerita Wednesday.
The Winerita. Ooh-wee. Man.
Oh, I just remembered we have that peaked one.
Oh, yeah, we got some good ones. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So that leads us to the conclusion of our first Here's Who We Are.
Yep.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So we hope you enjoy, guys. Have a great day.
Bye.